Hi, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cracking installment of the Matt Brown Show. This is the Secrets of Fail series where we're talking about all of our dirty, ugly failures, the stuff that we put away in the broom cupboard and then we hope no one talks about. With us on the line and the hot seat today on this episode is none other than Peter Zaitsev, the CEO of Percona. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, hey.
Dude, tell me, let's kick us off with the elevator pitch, man. What are you guys up to these days?
So at Percona, we help companies to run open source databases such as MySQL, MongoDB, and Postgres. And with that, we help our customers by having the software and services to achieve better availability, security, performance, and lower cost.
Mm-hmm. So what's a typical problem when somebody reaches out to you and says, hey, I have this problem? What does that actually look like?
Well, databases are hard, right? At least for many, mission critical databases, right? So then somebody gets more database than they are ready to handle, then they come to us. For some of that, and in many cases, that is scalability problems, right? The application is just too slow because database is not performing. In other cases, that's maybe security or database becomes too costly. So we solve all of those kind of problems.
I ran into a database administrator on Sunday, the guy of my kid's birthday party, and I was like, DBA, I haven't heard that term in such a long time. Is DBA still like a very important component in IT infrastructure?
Well, yes, DBAs are still important. I think in many cases where, in profession, we kind of like to spice and change titles a little bit.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's called database engineer now, or database reliability engineer now, or database architect, right? Or all kind of different titles. But in the end, the databases are still important. What I like to explain with databases to people is, like your plumbing. You probably do not think about your toilet a lot, right? It just works. But you know what? If it clogs it can cause a great mess for your house, right? The same thing with databases, right? You often do not notice them until it's misbehave, and that is where you wished you would have taken a good care of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy. So let's get on to the main meal of this series today. What is your story of fail for our audience around the world today?
Yes, for my story of fail, I'll go all the way back to 2015. Then we at Percona have done our only relatively big acquisition and acquired the company. And that didn't go very well for us. So in the end, in I think maybe a year, maybe slightly longer, we lost all the staff members, and we didn't get a good return on that technology, right? In the end, few years later, we end up decommissioning that.
So what transpired? I mean, what did you learn from that experience?
Well, I think a few things. One thing is I started to appreciate even more how much culture matters, right? And how multidimensional that culture aspect is, right? Because, hey, you know what? We have a tech company, we like open source databases technology, but you know what? That does not really make us comparable because we may be different on some other directions in terms of how we approach things. Right. They're kind of like a locally office focused company, and we were, completely distributed workforce. Right. So they have been kind of like a fish out of the water in our environment. Right. I also think it was very to learn what we did not really maybe understand very well what Percona is good at. And the fact that we were very good helping our customers with other very kind of mature databases, that did not mean we were very good at doing the greenfield development of a database technology virtually from scratch. I also learned what optimism, and I think we entrepreneurs like we generally are optimists, right? We even have to have our own this distortion field. But sometimes when you imagine things as you wish they would be, not as they're likely to be, that can, get that bad tricks on you, right? When you believe maybe too much in your own invention.
Yeah. So so just to double click on some of the stuff here. So basically you went and acquired this company, you had this technology, there was a culture mismatch, and ultimately the thing didn't work out the way that you had hoped to. Maybe let's use that to go back in time. So if you could go back to yourself before this event, before you did the acquisition, what would you do differently?
Well, I think I didn't mention yet another important thing to frame that situation. At that time, we haven't been doing very well financially, right? And that is, I think, one of those hopes. Hey, you know what? This looks like a company we can buy. We're going to have this amazing synergy, and that is going to solve all the problems, right? And I want to say is, well, when you're short on cash, buying something may not be smartest thing to do, right? And I think maybe for you that sounds kind of very, naive and obvious, but I think that's could be one of the mistakes we went, right? And I think it would be good to go back and think more clearly about that, whether that is actually a solution and is likely, or you are having your hope as a strategy, right? And generally to evaluate the deal better, right? Maybe kind of to take it slow and do not rush. And I think what we try to do at that time is we try to close the team and announce that on the conference. And that was kind of very important for me, right? Because, hey, you know what? It's so nice and glorious when you can come out at your conference and then in a keynote in front of thousands of people say, hey, we bought this company, right? We are, it's kind of cool, right? Well, maybe cool, but maybe it doesn't worth it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, because I was literally thinking about that. Like the ego, the role of the ego when it comes, your ability, like, oh, I just acquired a company, it's like, oh yeah, you're such a rock star. But like a lot of acquisitions go wrong. Like I've sold a couple companies, and I've been on both sides. And oftentimes it does go wrong, with the lack of due diligence, especially in the private space. Like, is the story really the story, and so it is a minefield. So tell me, you didn't have cash to acquire these guys, or you were a bit cash strapped. So how did you fund it?
Well, they were also in a situation where we needed to be acquired. So we structured that as a stock and earnout in the deal as a deal, right? So we didn't have to pay any cash out upfront.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. So what's your advice, Peter, to other CEOs or entrepreneurs out there listening to us right now in terms of the importance of failure in business success?
Yes, well, I will mention something which is relevant for me, right? And I think that is advice which is, maybe different for different people. I like to go back to this saying, which says, "What you can do anything, but you cannot do everything," right? And I keep reminding that myself, right? And I think that's very important for many entrepreneurs, right, who are so full of ideas, right? Every day, even before breakfast, right, you may have already, 20 ideas, and maybe 15 of them are actually pretty good. Right. And I think you need to manage that from different angles. One is also saying no, probably more often than you are, then focus. And then what is also very important, delegation, right? I think in many cases for many entrepreneurs, right, who do multiple things at the same time, that is a secret, right? Making sure while you can't focus on many ideas, well, that doesn't mean other people cannot focus on your ideas.
That's really good advice. Peter, are there any books or tools or resources that you encourage other founder entrepreneurs to use on their journeys?
Yeah, well, I like podcasts. Right, like I think how I built it, right, that by Garaz, that has been there with a fantastic podcast in this case for entrepreneurs in particular. The other one, which is kind of slightly to the side, but also very relevant, is called Cautionary Tales by Pushkin Industries, right? And I think that is, fantastic in terms of how things go wrong in certain cases, right? Because I think that's also is also very refreshing for us entrepreneurs in many cases.
Yeah, and don't forget the Matt Brown show. I mean, I heard of it; it's pretty good. Yeah. Awesome. Well, look, Peter, thanks for being on the show, dude, and thank you for sharing your perspective on the Secrets of Fail series. It's great to know that you're not alone in the world of failing through acquisition. It's a lot of guys do it to grow, interestingly, and it's great to have your perspective on that.
Absolutely. That was very fantastic education. Expensive, but it's very valuable.
Well, which education is not expensive? Oh, my word. Well, look, thanks again, buddy. I appreciate you being here.